Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the flexible flyer racer, and I have 7 different examples that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the first series, the C, the D, the E, a couple of Fs, and the G. So let's start with the first series. This one here had a wooden bumper, wooden steering bar, and wooden rails. It had the eagle and shield logo, and this steering bar has the black pinstripe with the red pinstripe accents, both on the steering bar and the bumper, and it had wooden rails. Again, here's the eagle and shield logo. And this was the second type produced. The other one had a different type of pinstriping, which I'll get to. On the back, it just says Flexible Flyer Racer patent on it. It doesn't have a patent number. It doesn't have the Planet Junior stamp. It just has a place where I think there was a sticker, and it doesn't have anything about the runners on the back of the deck. It was riveted on the bottom, as you can see here. It does have a gooseneck runner with grooved. Oh, okay, so this one, there would have been a Flexible Flyer Racer earlier in this one, and it would have had this type of pinstriping, probably produced in 1908 only. Okay, so next up we have the Series C. This one has a metal bumper and metal rails, and that was the first year that that was produced, and it has an eagle and shield logo on it. And it would have had a steering bar with the same type of stripes, black with red stripes like in this one, but these just wore off on this example. And here's the difference between the two bumpers. You can see the Series C is where they rolled out the metal bumper and metal rails. It was riveted on the top rather than the bottom. As you can see in this wooden bumper one, it would have, the first series, it was riveted by the gooseneck runner. Another difference between the first generation is that they have one bolt that attaches to the steering bar and only 2 rivets here and here, whereas in all other versions they have a bolt connecting the deck to the bar and 4 rivets. So that's another big difference. On the back of the deck, you can see it says Series C. That's different. And the Series C, it says nickel-plated runners on it, grooved runners, and that is different from the other series. It does not have a Planet Junior logo on the top of the deck. On the back of the steering bar, there's C. You can see that there's bolts. I think that's a repair. It should be riveted. Here we have a Series D. And there are Series D with the eagle and shield logo, but this one has an eagle and sled logo, and that was started and rolled out in 1921. You can see here the difference between the two emblems. The D Series, also on the back, you can see it says D Series on it. It does not have nickel-plated runners, but it says grooved runners on them. So that's new and different, and it also has a Planet Junior logo on it. That was new. It also has thicker rivets connecting the steering bar to the deck, whereas on the C and the original, they were smaller, as you can see here. And now we have the E Series, and this is very similar to the D, with a couple of differences. It has the same type of rivets. It has the eagle and shield. It has the wooden metal bumpers on it. It has the same type of logo, as you can see. It says E on the back, and it also has a USA next to the Planet Junior. It does not say nickel-plated groove runners, but it also has, this is the big difference between the D and the E, is it says USA on the E and it does not on the D. So here we have an F. And this is the first to have a bifurcated steering bar and the diamond pattern on the steering bar. So you see the bumper. Sorry, it's the bumper that's bifurcated. You can see there. So they did that for, I believe, 1 year only. And then this is where they introduced the diamond pattern. So no more pinstripes. On the back it says F, patent applied for. It has the same stamps as the E, Planet Junior with the USA. And here we have another flexible flyer F. So this one has a super steering bar on it, as you can see there. It has a cover to the steering bar and pinstripes on that. And here's another view of it. So this was the first time that the super steering was introduced. It also has F on the back, just like the other F. Everything is the same as the previous F. And here we have a G racer, and there's a couple of differences here. As you can see, the deck is the same as the F. It has the diamond pattern, and it has super steering, but it also has a sticker on it. And you can see here, there's a super steering sticker, and it has a hole in the super steering. So that's a difference between the G and the F. Here you can see the F does not. And the runners have been bent at the back for safety on the G, whereas all the previous ones, they had suicide runners. So here we have an E, and a first year F, second year F, and a G. And those are the differences between the bumpers. So to recap, we have a first series racer here. We have a C series here. We have a D, an E, a first year F, a second year F, and a G. And that is it for the racers up until the airline series. Okay, so that about does it. I have 7 that I showed you, and there seems to be 2 that I'm missing. The first one would be the first series with the ornate pinstriping, and then the second one would be a D with an eagle and shield. Come on, you can do it. So those are the 2 that I'm missing. I have faith in you. They're not going to bite. Come on, little buddy, you can do it. So now we're going to get to the hard part of trying to date them. So here is an excerpt from Jones' first book, and you can see in the Flexible Flyer timeline, it says in 1921, this was the first year that the numbers 1 through 6 were introduced with the letter C, and I'm going to make the case that this is incorrect. So in Jones' second book, we have an example of a flexible flyer with the ornate pinstriping. This is a 6. And she states that this is the last year with the ornate pinstriping, and that took place in 1908. And then in her first book, we have a 5B with the eagle and shield that she dates at around 1900, and it has the newer pinstriping that started in 1909. So I believe this 1900 date is wrong, and I believe that the racers had this pinstriping starting in 1909, and for 1 year only in 1908, the racers had this ornate pinstriping. So there is an example of a racer with this type of pinstriping on the steering bar and the bumper, and that was probably for 1 year only in 1908. And then from 1909 up until 1914, they had the racers, they did not have the B on them, it just said racer, and they had this type of pinstriping on it. So that's what we're thinking. If you do have a racer that has that says racer with the letter B on it, please let us know. That would be something new. Hey everybody, so here are the dates that for the flexible flyer racer sled. So this is specific to all flexible flyer sleds via Sled Hill. They don't specify racers or the other series. So we're just going to look at these dates, and then we're going to critique them and see if we can revise them. So via the website sledhill.com, it says that there are the first series of flexible flyers, which had wood bumpers and rails, went from 1889 to 1908, and they had sizes 1 through 6. And then the B series, they said, went from 1908 to 1914, And during this time, the racer was introduced in 1908. So from 1908 to 1914, we had 7 different sleds. We had the racer, and this is excluding Fireflies, but we had the racer, and then the size 1 through 6, with 6 being the largest. And then on Sled Hill, they say that the C Series went from 1915 to 1928. This is sleds that had a steel bumper and steel rails in them. And they said that during the C Series, they had both the Eagle and Shield logo and the Eagle and Sled logo that sometime during this period had changed. And then when it comes to the D Series, they have a big question mark. They said, we've heard of D sleds being out there, but we don't know what the difference is between them, and they don't really give an example. So they just briefly mention Ds, but they don't actually give a time frame. And then they go from 1928 straight to 1928 for the E Series, and they say that the E Series was probably produced for 1 year only, that being in 1928. And when we get to the F Series, they said that this is the time when they had 2 different steering systems that were introduced. First was a bifurcated steering system in 1928, and then in 1929 they had the new super steering, and that's when that appears. And then the G Series, the last series, they said went from 1930 to 1934. And then they said the airline series was rolled out in 1935. So there's a couple important things to note. One, there is an example of a D series marked 1924. So we know that the D series was around at that time. Now, they could have been sold in 1924 but produced in 1923. The kid that received a D-Series racer could have received it on Christmas 1923, and then he decided to carve in the new year 1924. So this doesn't actually tell us if it was made in 1924, but I would assume that they were made as late as 1923. And the super steering does not appear in the ads until December of 1930. So either the Fs were not advertising the super steering, or the F Series was produced in 1930, before Christmas of 1930. So that means they would have had to have been produced in 1930. And the other thing that's worth noting is that the E Series sleds are the most common sleds. So in my collection, over half of them are E Series, and they're really easy to find. And I have so many, and I'm not even actively looking for them. If I find them at a good price, I buy them. But I mean, I'm actively looking for C's, F's, G's, and I have some D's, some nice examples of D's. But the E Series is far more plentiful than the others. So a couple things may be happening here, which I'll get to when we look at the revised dates. So these are the dates that I propose for the Flexible Flyer racers, the series dates and dates of production. So we have the C Series with the Shield going from 1915 to 1920. And the reason for this is I've asked in the Facebook group, Flexible Flyer Enthusiasts, if anybody has a C Series with the Eagle and the Sled rather than the Eagle and the Shield, and that was a negative. Nobody has seen it. Everybody's assumed they exist, but as a racer, we do not have any examples of that. So as of now, I would say that the C Series only had the Shield, and it went from 1915 to 1920. In that same forum and on that same thread, one individual said they have a D Series with a Shield. So that would mean that the D Series should have existed as early as 1921. The only other explanation for that would be that they ran out of emblems or decals, but that doesn't make sense. So I'm assuming that they decided to keep the C Series for the 1 through 6 and then upgrade the Flexible Flyer Racer to a D Series, probably for marketing purposes. And so for at least 1 year, 1921, there is a D Series with a Shield. And I'm saying 1 year only because they're so rare. All the D series I have sleds instead of shields. And then the new dates for the D series, Eagle and the sled rather than the shield would be 1922 to 1924. And they could have stopped production as early as 1923. Remember, I found a D series that had a 1924 etched on the back of it. Well, that could have been etched in the new year, and he could have received it the last year of production in December. So, and then we have the E series. So this could have, I have it from 1925 to 1928, but that could have been as early as 1924 to 1928. And this would make a little bit more sense if it was produced for 4 years or 5 years here, 4 or 5 years, rather than 3 years of the other series, because there are so many of them. Another explanation for that would be I'm wrong, and there's really not that many of them, and I just happen to have, over half my collection just happens to be E's, and they really are rare. Or Flexible Flyer had a pretty sophisticated marketing campaign that they rolled out, and they just were selling them like hotcakes. Or, and I think this to be also likely, that the economy was doing really well. I mean, this is 1924 to 1928. This is 1 year before the stock market crash. Sales were probably booming, and that's why that is probably also a contributing factor to why there are so many E's. Now, we get to the F series. We have two different types of Fs. We have the first proto super steering, and then we have the actual super steering. But this super steering does not have a sticker with it. So we don't know if they were marketing it as super steering, but I want to assume that they were. So I'm going to say that the F series had the proto steering in 1929 and the actual super steering in 1930. And that would give the G series the super steering with that little hole in the center of the steering bar at the top, and the sticker 1931 to 1933. And the reason why I stop it is 1933, and I think most people believe that the airline series started in 1935. That is partially true, but they were advertising their airline series sleds as early as 1934, and I found newspaper ads with that. Now, those newspaper ads and databases could be wrong, but as of now, I would say that it's partially true that they were sold that they started in 1935. Maybe they rolled them out late in December of 1934, because they're selling them for a whole season. So technically, the winter years, December, their sales are from November through February. So that could be their sales year. And so they kind of merge 1934 and 35 together. But so it's partially true. But I've seen advertisements as early as 1934, and that means that they were producing them in 1934. So that about does it. If you have any comments on this, or you have evidence to the contrary of anything that I've said, please, let me know. I want to get this as accurate as possible. And if you have other examples of sleds that have dates etched in them, please share, because I think that's a definitive way that we can get these dates down to at least the dates of production to at least within 1 year, that being January of that year all the way to December. And so that's going to be the way that we're going to solve this mystery. But I think this is a lot more accurate than what we had before. And the other thing I'd like to note is that no one on the forum up to date has seen a Flexible Flyer number 1 through 6, D or E. All the Flexible Flyer 6s that I have, they have C's, and then they go straight to G. They don't have an F. So perhaps there isn't F's. I know the Wii Racers are G's. I've never seen an F. Maybe there is a Wii Racer F. But for the other Flexible Flyers, if you do have a Flexible Flyer that isn't a racer, that is number 1 through 6, and it has a D, E, or F, please let us know and share either in the Flexible Flyer groups on Facebook or in the comments of this video. I would also like to take the time to thank some of the members of these forums: Rosebud Sled Museum, Vintage Runner Sled Collectors, and Flexible Flyer Sleds. Without their input, this video wouldn't be possible. Many of these members are avid sled collectors, and they have in their collections very rare sleds that I've used to help create this timeline. So I want to thank them for their contributions. And if you want to learn more about flexible flyer sleds or vintage runner sleds, you can find all these groups on Facebook. Roadbud Sled Museum, that's my group. I focus on Victorian sleds as well as flexible flyers and other vintage runner sleds. There's vintage runner sled collectors, and then there's flexible flyer sleds. And yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about sleds, or you want to share your photos or contribute, please join these groups. Thank you very much. And once again, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. It helps out my channel. I want to continue doing this. And thank you again for watching. Take care.